Now, US President Donald Trump has again cast aspersions on South Africa's land question and cast greater doubt on his attendance at the G20 Summit that's scheduled to happen later this year. Taking to Truth Social, now Trump questioned whether they could be expected to go to South Africa for the G20 when land confiscation and genocide was the primary topic of conversation. We now discuss how significant Trump's decision to question essays ahead of the G20 Summit in the context of the US-South Africa relations and how South African government is treating this as a whole. Helping us to unpack this now is political analyst Professor Kedibone Phago. Prof, thank you so much for your time on the program. So let's start here. Do you perhaps get a sense that there's a deeper strategic intention behind Trump's comments on South Africa? Or is this just another case of populist posturing that ignores facts on the ground?
Morning, Policy. Thank you for having me. Yes, indeed, this has been going on for a while now, and we know that the Trump and his administration have actually sustained this kind of a narrative, and many in South Africa and elsewhere know that this is actually not true. My concern is that our government has actually not, so there are two parts. The first part is that our government has responded very well to this and, tried their best to use the diplomatic channels. And I think that is an excellent approach to the way we have reacted to Trump's positioning and his provocations on South Africa. And that is actually something we need to applaud our government for. But I also feel that, there's a saying that in every problem there's an opportunity. And I feel that we are missing an opportunity as South Africa, because with this narrative that we are mistreating Afrikaners in South Africa, and that they do not have they are not included in the economic activities. I think we are losing out, and we can actually start a campaign that really demonstrates the reality, the truth, the positives that are happening in South Africa in many institutions, and how inclusive we are and how vibrant our democracy is. So I think maybe we need to throw a challenge back to the government that even though they shouldn't be responding directly to Trump, but I'm sure that in advertising the G20 or in their, just showcasing what is happening in South Africa for tourism, there's so much we can do to really showcase and even attract much more attention. In fact, we can use this situation to our benefit, but not, responding directly to his utterances.
And tell you what, the point that you make now weaves perfectly into my next question, Prof. The South African government, as you've mentioned, has opted for a muted, sort of non-responsive stance. So now, in your view, this strategic silence, as many have called it, or a missed opportunity, as you rightfully also say, to set the record straight and perhaps also just tell us about the risk of allowing false narratives to take hold unchecked.
It's a very difficult situation, and I don't want us to take it lightly because U.S. and South Africa have got very strong, deep, and long-term relations that have been happening for many years. We've got strong business relations, social, cultural relations. So it's not going to be an easy way to actually deal with this. And to some extent, I understand why South African government has not actually come out very strongly to make their position loud and clear, and opted to use diplomatic relations. And you will remember that our ambassador was chased out of the US recently because of also partly frustrations that he could not access US officials in trying to engage them. And now US has an ambassador coming, Ambassador ambassador who has been nominated to come to South Africa, and he's yet to present the credentials. So we don't know what will be the outcome of that. And I'm very certain that there's so much happening in the background. But South Africa has to find ways to position itself. It's a huge opportunity for us that we can go to many countries and demonstrate how black, white, Indian, colored in South Africa are thriving, and it is true that is actually happening to a very large extent. We still have our own, of course, problems of poverty, of inequality, of the economy that is not growing, of municipalities that are not working, but I think there are many more positive stories that we can go out there as a country and say, even as we host G20, these are our aspirations, this is what we want to achieve, this is the kind of targets we are showing to the world, and this is our ability as South Africa that we are able to compete globally, and that we've got the best, some of the best academic institutions. We have got democracy, that our NGOs and that our political parties can participate. We've got the freedom of speech is entrenched in the Constitution. So I think we are able to do that, but we don't want to fall into the trap, and I think this is what the current US administration is doing, that they are making a lot of statements that seeks to get our direct response, so that they are going to accuse us of indeed persecuting the Afrikaners. So we just have to be very careful on how we couch our response to President Trump and his administration.
So also in an interesting twist, Prof, the US Embassy has said they are willing to engage South Africa with facts. What does this tell us about how the official US state apparatus works? Is it really trying to distance itself from Trump's messaging?
So US is a superpower currently, and it's a global leader in many respects. And they have what it takes, the technology, they have got the intelligence to know exactly what is happening in South Africa. So they are not confused. And that's why we should not take their bait when we respond to that. So it is very important that as a country we understand what is really happening around us, what is happening in the US, and say, where is our position? What are we going to say, and how can we say it in a manner that demonstrates our sophistication? And I think we are a very sophisticated. We are up to the task as a country. We understand so far. I mean, this problem has been happening since Trump came into power. So by now we really understand the nature of the problem. In the beginning, I think we're a little bit doubtful on whether there are problems. Maybe there's a messaging that is not getting through to the US. But by now, as a country, it is very clear that we understand the nature of the problem, and that the embassy says that they want to engage us on facts. So we have to then again know that the best way to engage them will not be in the public domain, in the media platforms, but through our diplomatic channels. What we can do in the public domain, in the social media platform, in the mainstream media platform, is to now showcase the vibrancy of our democracy. And I think we've got a very capable people in that can market South Africa very well, that can actually even boost our tourism. We can create a narrative around the Afrikaner story, in fact, and make it sell to the world. So I don't know why we're taking too long to actually, bring this, because tourism in itself will bring huge economic opportunities for South Africa. So we need to think, around that, I think, at this point in time.
And I want us to also turn sharp focus, Prof, on global geopolitics. Now, could South Africa's neutral or non-combative posture towards the U.S. position perhaps maybe position South Africa more strategically in an increasingly multipolar world?
But what we need to remember, policy, is that the challenge that South Africa is facing is actually not unique, that there are many other countries that are really at loggerheads with the US. So sometimes we should not really be fighting too hard to think that we are the only target. Obviously, we are also at the receiving end, but we need to, as you rightly say, that there are geopolitical questions at play. And my thinking is that our affiliation to BRICS is also a major issue that the US has against us. And largely because we are, not a very strong, you can say we're the weakest link in BRICS, in terms of population, in terms of the economic size. Maybe we are just very well positioned for the BRICS countries to access the African continent. So we need to understand those kind of dynamics and say, why are we specifically targeted by these kind of narratives from the US, and find very creative and very subtle and sophisticated ways of dealing with this. Largely, as you rightly say, that we are a little bit, maybe unsure of how we need to respond to this, but by now I think we should really have a very solid direction on what is our geopolitical positioning. And in some of the issues, the global issues, our position is very well known that we choose to be non-aligned, which is our selling point, and I think we just need to latch more on that so that we are able to demonstrate beyond reasonable doubt that in many cases when there are global conflicts and problems, our positioning has always been to find common ground for the parties so that we can contribute positively to such conflicts.
And I want to take it back a little bit and just find out from you, if you were to have a little view into the future, what impact could Trump's G20 remarks have on diplomatic and economic ties between the US and South Africa, especially as we build up to this all-important conference?
I think it's not a small statement. It's not something that we need to trivialize at all on policy. The points that President Trump it's making, it's really shaking us to our core, because by and large, this kind of statements further drive divisions among South Africans. And so, in every way possible, you can think of the social interaction, the economic interaction. So often our problems are, ballooned. And I think we need to find a way of making sure that we have a proper strategy to neutralize his statements and his positioning on South Africa, especially because we need this relationship with Americans, and that is an important point. The government itself has indicated to South Africans and the world that we've got over 600 US companies operating in South Africa. So there's so much at stake to lose this kind of a relationship with the US. So we need to be very careful, knowing that he is a president of the US properly elected, and his term will come to an end, and it is on our side as well to find very positive and amicable ways of handling this difficult moment that we are having with the Americans.
All right, political analyst Professor Kedibone Phago, thank you so much indeed for your time and insights on the program this hour.